Hello everyone, and thank you for joining me. Today we're going to discuss communication in the workplace. This will include the flow of communication, verbal and nonverbal communication, problems with communication, and how to improve communication within the workplace. Let's begin, shall we? First of all, we have the flows of communication. Now there are going to be three different types. There's going to be downward flow, upward flow, and horizontal flow. With the downward flow, you have the CEO communicating to the rest of the team, and the flow of communication is going to move from the top to the bottom. You have the CEO spreading information to the vice presidents of each division, and then to the managers, and then to the supervisors, and then to the employees. Problems within this include that there are going to be long lines of communication, and within that, messages can get distorted. When the CEO has to move down the chain to each different division, it's going to be a lot of middlemen, and it's going to take even longer for the message to get to the person it's intended for. And we've all played the games of telephone as children, and the more people you have involved, the more distorted the message can be at the end. Next, we have upward flow, and this is just the opposite of downward flow. This is going to be communications from the employees at the bottom all the way to the CEO at the top. And this can be about day-to-day, the feedback, what's working, what's not working, that the employees are really having to deal with, and that information gets moved up the chain. Problems with this include fear of honesty and lack of trust with co-workers, managers, or even the company that they're working for. In today's society, we have a lot of businesses, making job cuts and cutting back on where they're really spending their money. And being honest sometimes leads employees to fear that they might lose their job if they are honest. Next, we have horizontal flow, and this is the flow of communication between two co-workers at the same level. Obstacles with this include poor communication skills and competition. There's a lot to do with, two different divisions, and, maybe this company doesn't want to share, or this division doesn't want to share, communicate with this division because they're afraid that their idea will get them higher on the ladder, whereas they might not get that opportunity. So there's a real competition on what information gets shared, which can lead to a lot of problems and lack of communication within the workplace. Next, we have verbal and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication is obviously speech. There's going to be a lot in our words, our tone of voice, and our inflections that are going to be really important on how the receiver is really interpreting our message. So it's really important that we keep very positive on all of these, and that we really use words that describe what we mean so we can get the best message across as possible. Next, we have nonverbal communication. This involves eye contact, facial expressions, posture and gestures, time, space, territory, business documents, and the way a person looks. First, we have eye contact. And we all know the old saying that the eye is the window to your soul, which is really true in a lot of cases, because a lot of times if someone's lying, they won't be able to look you in the eye. And so we assume that if someone isn't looking at us, that they are lying and we can't trust them. Or if someone looks at us for too long or is staring too intently, that they might have an aggressive personality. Next, we have facial expressions. And a lot of people aren't very good at hiding their emotions. They wear their emotions on their sleeve. We can tell when someone is happy or mad or sad or angry or, nervous about something. So it's really important in a workplace to put on positive facial expressions. Next, we have postures and gestures. We can tell a lot about a person by the way they walk, they stand, they sit. A person who tends to walk tall or have good posture, we tend to associate them with being a leader or having, a strong personality. And the people who slouch tend to look like they're lazy, or maybe we tend to see them as having a weak personality. Employees also need to be careful of gestures too, because different cultures see gestures differently. Just like in the US, the thumbs up sign has a different meaning in other cultures and other countries. The okay sign has a different meaning. And the way we summon someone to come to us, in the US we do this. However, that has a completely different meaning in Africa than it does in the US. They summon people like this. Next, we have time. And Americans tend to really like and value punctuality. In the US, you're not on time unless you're 10 to 15 minutes early. Whereas in other cultures, this could be seen as being rude, and they expect you maybe to be 5 or 10 minutes late. So time is really about the culture you're in as well. Space, that has a lot to do with the layout of the way a business is, where the furniture is placed. And it does the company, do they put up cubicles? Do they have walls? Do they have no walls? Do they have seats close together? Do they have seats far apart? Do they sit in circles? All of this says a lot about how the company operates. When there's no walls, when you sit in a circle, when your chairs are close together, it shows that the company really values teamwork, and they expect you to depend on other people around you. Whereas if you have cubicles or offices or seats far apart, that shows that they really value individual work and they want you to work separately. Next we have territory, and this has a lot to do with personal space and like our work zones. Americans tend to really value personal space. We don't like when people just walk into our office or into our cubicle unannounced, or when they get too close to us. Whereas some other cultures really value being close to one another, and there are even other cultures that like to be farther apart than Americans do. Next we have appearance of business documents. The way our document looks sends a message. If you have a document that looks really professional and put together, it not only speaks about what is in the report, but it speaks about you as a person. If it looks neat and put together, the receiver of that is going to feel that you put a lot of time into it, that you're organized, that you're professional, and that the message that you sent is really important. Whereas if it's sloppy or it looks disheveled, people are really going to see that as, this message might not be important because they didn't even take the time to do anything with it, or this person isn't very organized, or this person isn't very good at their job. So it's really important how your document looks and that it is professional in a business setting. Next we have the appearance of people, and that's really important because our first judgment of a person is them walking up, which has to do with their appearance. Do they look well groomed? Do they look like they comb their hair? Is their outfit put together? Someone who looks professional is going to be taken more seriously than someone who walks in and looks disheveled. Next we have communication, diversity in the workplace. First of all, we have lack of communication, language, culture, and company culture. We all know lack of communication can lead to breakdowns. This breakdown isn't even so much in what's being said, it's the fact that the flow of information is being halted, so that means that projects aren't getting done, messages aren't being received, and that really affects the way a company runs. With language, it's twofold. We have inappropriate language and we have foreign language. Inappropriate language isn't even so much words that are inappropriate. It's how we interact with one another, and it really needs to be on a positive level and not a negative level. With foreign language, it can be a huge barrier within the workplace, and it can tend to make people feel really uncomfortable and maybe like they're being talked about or something secretive is being said. So it's really important for companies to establish a main language that's going to be spoken. And if you have employees who are not very good at the main language, then it's the company's responsibility to get educational opportunities for these employees to better improve their main language skills. Next we have culture, and when you work in a workplace, there are going to be a lot of different cultures, a lot of different people coming in, and those people have different beliefs, different traditions, and it's important to learn how to mesh those all together, because a lot of times there can be a breakdown within that when they feel segregated or something like that. And it's important that the company establishes cross-cultural communications with one another, and that they set up teams, and that if they're not working, that the company does something about that. Next you have company culture, and this is basically how a company runs. It's going to be how the managers manage their employees. Many times there's a real disparity between the managers and the employees, which can lead to feelings of tension. It can lead to people, feeling resentment towards one another, which can really lead to a communication breakdown. So it's important to establish a good company culture. Next, we have the ways to improve communication. First of all, we need to be direct and to the point. If something needs said, then you just need to say it. One example would be saying, oh, hey Tara, can you get that document and put it on my desk? It's really vague for Tara. Instead, if you want that done, you need to be very direct and to the point and tell her exactly what you need. So instead of saying that, you could say, Tara, I'm going to need that document on my desk by 5 o'clock tomorrow. So she knows exactly how much time she has and what you're expecting of her. When employees don't really know what's expected of them, they tend to be very disappointing to the employer. So it's important that you really communicate how you feel and what you want done so that your employee knows how to do it. Next, you need to watch your attitude while talking. This can be, staying engaged. You need to look at the person who's talking to in the eye. You need to put down whatever you're doing. Put down your cell phone, put down the book, put down the report, and really engage in the conversation. So that person knows that you're listening. That person knows that you're actually taking the message in and absorbing it, that you're not just looking at them. Next, we need to keep an open mind. Instead of seeing something that's not being done correctly and assuming that that employee is just, out to get you or trying to do something wrong, really keep an open mind about it. Maybe the message was lost. Maybe it was lost in translation. That person didn't understand what you meant. Instead, keep an open mind and go to that person and talk to them about what your expectations were so they know. And at that point, you might find out that it was just miscommunication, that they didn't exactly know what you want, or they heard what you wanted, but had a different idea of how you wanted them to do it. Lastly, you need to be kind. We all know the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And it's really important that, if you weren't going to say it, if you wouldn't want someone to say it to you, then you shouldn't say it to other people. And two, this can involve being, companies, they will need to fire people every once in a while. And in the be kind, it is, you need to go to that person who you need to fire and sit down and talk with them about it. Have a face-to-face. Don't send them an email that they're being terminated. Really talk to them and explain to them what's going on. Be as kind as possible. You also want to really establish that in the office, that you're not going to have gossip, and you're going to have positive talk, and you're going to have a positive atmosphere, because that really encourages and fosters respect between employees, and between the employees and the manager, and between the CEO and all of the people who work under them. And here are the references. Well, thank you for listening to my presentation on communication in the workplace. I hope you've learned a lot about how to effectively communicate with each other at work, and that these are some tools that you're going to be able to take back to your workplace and really implement. Have a good day.